and you will receive the slides and the recording of today's session and any other resources by the end of the week. You'll get it in your inbox in an email. So without further ado, I will get us started here because we have a lot of good things to cover and share with you. So, we talk about the Grandfamilies and Kinship Support Network, and just to be clear, we use those two terms interchangeably to mean grandparents and other relatives and close family friends, what we used to call often victive kin, who are raising children when parents can't. So that's what we mean by those two terms, and like I say, we use them interchangeably. We run the nation's only federally funded technical assistance center on the families here at Generations United. We work with 5 partners, including US Aging, who we're so pleased to have to have Leland with us today during this webinar and have US Aging as a partner. Our purpose is not to help the families directly because communities do that best. The 2 area agencies on aging that you're going to hear from today do that best. But what we do is elevate and replicate and help programs around the country learn from each other and all the wonderful practices and programs like the 2 you're going to hear from today. Elevate those so that others can not start at square zero, but learn from their peers. And we are here for any number of individual assistance requests, and they can be small or large. I need a policy on XYZ example, or do you have a form for this or that? Or will you set up meetings with an area agency on aging that does this very well? So we do all levels of requests, including state-specific trainings. We've done a number of those. We host webinars on a monthly basis, like the one that you're participating in today. And of course, we have our website, which looks like this. And we have a number of resources on it, over 100 originally created resources in the resource library, many of which were created by our partner here, US Aging, and many other partners as well. And there in the button in the right-hand corner is where you can request that free of charge individual assistance. And please don't hesitate to reach out. We have fabulous technical assistance specialists, including Kylie Kern, who's on the webinar today, to help you. So our presenters today, including Kylie, who I've already introduced, and Leland, who I mentioned briefly. Leland Kiang is with US Aging, and he's one of our he's with one of our 5 managing partner organizations. And then we're privileged today to have Sarah McDonald from an area agency on aging in Pennsylvania with us today, and Brooke Mainville, didn't want to get that wrong, and I had it covered up, from Region 9's area agency on aging in Michigan. So welcome Sarah and Brooke and Leland and Kylie, and we will hear from you all shortly. Look forward to it. To kick us off, I just want to give you, and I know many of you on this webinar are experts in kinship and grandfamilies, come to this webinar from a variety of perspectives. You may work for child welfare in a child welfare agency, or you may work in an aging agency. And so some of what we're going to say today is going to be like, well, duh, I knew that. But we're trying to find common ground here. So we hope to share tools that perhaps you don't know about from the other perspective. So I want to start with the grandparents who are responsible for their grandchildren. And we have US Census Bureau data on this population. What we don't have the same kind of US Census Bureau data on is aunts, uncles, cousins, siblings who raise relatives when parents can't. But we do know quite a bit about the grandparents. And we know that most are older, they're 60 and older. Most are caregiving for a long time, 5 years or more. They're all over the country, honestly. These families can be found everywhere in your communities. My hairdresser is a kinship caregiver. It's just, they might not identify as such, but they're everywhere. But they are more likely, according to the Census Bureau, to live in the South and in the Midwest. And they tend to live below the poverty line. And what we don't know is how caregiving throws them below the poverty line. That would be interesting research to have at some point, because we know who's under the poverty line, but we don't know how they got there. And we suspect that many went below the poverty line when they started raising children they didn't plan or expect to raise. And of course, the vast majority of women, but that comes to no surprise to most of us women. So know that this data is all available and kind of summarized, the national data that we have on our website. And the link is on this slide, and you will get these slides. And so on that slide, on that page of the website, you can see how to pull down this similar kind of data for your state or county or tribe or your congressional district even. And there are instructions there about how to pull down that data for your community. And if you struggle with that, those tables, don't hesitate to reach out through that TA request form that I mentioned, and we'll help walk you through that. Because we know sometimes all funding proposals have to start with the data and who are the families and how many are in your community and where are they? So we want to help you as we're able. Now, on the children's side, there are many children who are being raised in these families by grandparents and by other relatives. And this data that I'm sharing does include those other relatives and fictive kin or close family friends like godparents or maybe relatives who are no longer related by blood or marriage, like divorced aunts. So this does include all of them, and you will see that smaller bubble there, and that's the children who live with, who are placed with relatives and kin in the foster care system. So the foster care system relies heavily on relatives and kin, as we all know, especially those of us on this webinar or with child welfare, but it is a very small percentage of the overall population of children being raised by grandparents and other relatives and kin. So that's why it's so important that child welfare and aging collaborate and that we serve and support those many, many more families that are outside of foster care that are at risk of potentially entering foster care if we don't support them well. So you can see the ratio is huge. It's 19 children outside of foster care with a relative or kin for every one inside of foster care with a relative or kin. And you'll see the data page is also linked here, and it walks through how we get this data, where this data is from, how you can find your state data. And then it also, that bigger page, the first link, who are Grandfamilies, Kinship families, that has a number of resources on there, including 3 short videos of grand caregiver advocates, grand voices, grandparents or caregiver advocates, part of the Generations United Grand Voices Network. It links to a strengths and challenges fact sheet that's a real kind of basic piece that can be shared with your community about who are these families? What are you talking about? And that is recently updated. So there are a number of resources at that link as well. This is what I was talking about earlier, that child welfare does rely heavily on relatives and kin, and more so every decade. We're now at over a third of the foster care system is children placed with relatives and kin. And but it's still a fraction of those other children. So why do we support grandparents and other relatives who raise children and the children they raise? And why are we so focused on this in child welfare and in aging and many other systems that we support? It's because there's decades of research that show that these children thrive in their care, in the care of a family, in the care of people who know them, know their culture, know their community, can keep siblings together. These families often result in permanent families. Many of these caregivers adopt the children that they're raising. So there's just lots of positive outcomes for the children and for the caregivers. And again, I've shared some links there at the bottom where you can learn more and you can borrow from it for funding proposals or for whatever you need in your communities. When we talk about these families, a lot of times the challenges sound very similar to challenges that any family faces right now in America or any time in America, not just right now. But, they don't have enough food to eat, housing's not affordable, all those kinds of things that can touch any of us. But what really makes these families unique and compounds all those challenges that many families face is that the caregivers do not have automatic legal rights and responsibilities over the children like parents do. And without that, they can't consent to health care for the children. Forget paying for it, just consenting to it. Enroll the children in school can be challenging. So there's just a lot of hurdles. So that feeds into all those other things. So nutrition supports, housing. So without that legal relationship, sometimes all those access things become more challenging. They don't have to be, but they can be. Often they get these children at a moment's notice and in a traumatic situation. So they didn't plan or expect to raise these kids. They get them often in the middle of the night, especially, well, they just do. And in a traumatic situation, I mean, the parent's not able to parent. The parents aren't able to parent. So something's caused that. A sudden death, substance use, whatever it be. It's traumatic for the children and for the caregivers. So there's these unique challenges that just make these families unique and compound all those other challenges that can exist also for parent-headed families. So I'm going to end and then turn it over to Kylie with a video that we created here at the Grandfamilies and Kinship Support Network. It's just 2 minutes, and you are welcome to download. You're welcome to access it on YouTube and share it wherever you like. It's just very general about these challenges and strengths and who the families are, because as we know, sometimes that's the biggest hurdle. The caregivers don't identify with these two terms, grandfamilies and kinship families, so they don't know how to connect to resources if we don't use plain language or if we explain what we're talking about. So that's what this video is intended to do. So I will see you on the other side.
Across the U.S., about 2.5 million children are being raised by their grandparents, other relatives, or close family friends. These caregivers step up when parents are unable to raise their children, forming families known as kinship families or grandfamilies. Now, while the challenges some of these families face are similar to parent-headed families, there are fundamental differences. Unlike parents, who have automatic legal rights and responsibilities for their children, kin caregivers do not. They also did not expect to raise these children. They often step up to raise them at a moment's notice and during a crisis, like a parent's death. As of that moment, caregivers need authority to make decisions for the child, like enrolling them in school, and often need a court to grant a legal relationship, all of which takes time and money. Even with a legal relationship, the practical issues can be overwhelming. Like, where will the child sleep? Grandma may live in adult-only senior housing. Despite these challenges, decades of research prove that children thrive with kin. Generations United has been working on behalf of these families for over 25 years. As part of our work, and guided by kin caregivers and other experts, we run the only federally funded National Technical Assistance Center on the families, the Grandfamilies and Kinship Support Network. If you work at a government agency, school, or small or large nonprofit organization, we're here to help you better support the families. Visit www.gksnetwork.org to learn more.
Thank you all. I will turn it now to Kylie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kylie Kern, and I am one of the technical assistant specialists for the network. I'm here today to provide a very brief, high-level overview of the child welfare system. But before I begin, I want to acknowledge a couple of things. The first is that this is a high-level overview of a system that is complex, it's nuanced, it varies by state, and provides vastly different experiences for individuals. So I just want to note that the simple language I'm using today is in no way reflective of the very real challenges we know many children and families face when encountering the child welfare system. And secondly, as Anna mentioned, we recognize that on this webinar, we have people from many different systems, but a large portion of our audience tends to be from the child welfare system. So for those of you in child welfare, this information is going to be a review to you. But we just want to set the stage by including an overview of child welfare and aging so that we can better understand how these two systems can collaborate. What is child welfare? Next slide, bro. It is a complex system of programs and agencies geared toward keeping children safe and supporting families. So at its core, the child welfare systems across the country are designed to keep children safe. It has been around for a very long time, but organized child welfare, particularly through the federal involvement, began with the enactment of the Social Security Act in 1935. This provided the provisions for child welfare services, eventually leading to Child Welfare Services Program, or what many of us now refer to as Title 4B. And though federal oversight and funding originates with the U.S. Administration for Children and Families, or ACF, it's the states that have primary responsibility for administering child welfare. And in some states, it's even county administered. So we also have public agencies that may contract with local private child welfare agencies to provide services to families. Essentially, what I'm saying is that child welfare, though having some parameters federally funded, it does look different in every state. Next slide. At its core, child welfare does a couple of things pretty much the same across the country. It starts by receiving and investigating reports of possible child abuse and neglect. These might be received through concerned community members, family, friends, or mandated reporters such as teachers, coaches, medical professionals. It also offers prevention and supportive services to families if there is maybe an abuse or neglect allegation that's not substantiated, but a risk is seen in the home. So in these cases, the child welfare system may provide support to prevent entry into foster care or out-of-home care. And if removal is needed, the child welfare system is intended to provide temporary safe shelter. The key word here is temporary. It is intended to arrange for children to live with kin or sometimes with unrelated foster families. And lastly, the goal is to return children to their parents if able. If not, they may arrange for adoption or guardianship, ideally with kin. Next slide. Within the child welfare system, there are many kinship families. There are a couple of different terms that we like to note here. You've probably heard many of these in your work, but we say formal care often describes a situation where children have been placed into a kinship home by the courts and the child welfare agency has custody. So kin caregivers and children in formal care are said to be inside the child welfare system. Informal care, which, as Anna mentioned, is much more common, refers to situations in which kin caregivers arrange to provide primary care to relative children or close family friends without any involvement of the child welfare agency. Grandfamilies in this situation are often said to be outside of the child welfare system, and these families often lack formalized resources, which is why we are having this conversation today. Leland and others will share later about how the Aging Network can support kinship families outside of the child welfare system. I do want to note that while the terms formal and informal are widely used, and that's why I mentioned them today, we have heard from many kinship families that are an informal family or outside the child welfare system that the term informal care can feel disrespectful to the work they are doing. So at the network, we prefer to say inside and outside of the child welfare system. Next slide. Kinship care within child welfare is ever evolving and changing. Thankfully, that is what we are working towards. And really good strides have been made and continue to be made to place children with kin and ensure kin get the support that they deserve. So it's important to know what specifically is occurring in your state or jurisdiction so you can support kin. There are laws in place to prioritize placement with kin, and continued legislation is being introduced to ensure children are placed with kin whenever possible. Kin caregivers within the child welfare system have the option to become licensed foster parents. When doing so, they receive permanent guardianship of the child, if that's the way that the case goes. And in doing so, they would be eligible for guardianship assistant program, which also is known as KinGap. KinGap is a federal approach to ensure permanency for all children and includes an ongoing subsidy for the children they're caring for, similarly to how maybe a foster family who adopts an unrelated child would receive an adoption subsidy. There's also currently a very good push happening for kin-specific licensing, which legislation is being passed in many states to allow for this. Licensing standards, essentially that are common sense for kin caregivers, so that, for instance, a grandmother who is caring for a grandchild does not need to fulfill all of the same foster care licensing requirements as a traditional foster family in the community may need to care for an unrelated child. Next slide. And lastly, what I want to touch on is that there are many acronyms in child welfare and aging. I'm sure I used many today without even realizing it. And so to help, our partners at US Aging created a glossary for the network to help professionals better understand each other so that they can collaborate more effectively. So we're going to drop the link to that in the chat. And I hope that it's helpful to you as you learn some of that terminology. And with that, I will pass it on to Leland.
Hello everyone. My name is Leland Chang, and let me just share my screen for a second. Okay. So my name is Leland Chang again, and I am a program manager with US Aging. And it is my pleasure to speak to you today about the Aging Network and how it can complement services offered by child welfare when supporting kinship and grandfamilies. Just as Kylie said, this is a high-level overview of the Aging Network. And for those of you who are working in the Aging Network, much of what I'm going to say is going to be very familiar. But I do hope that it is useful for the folks who may be from child welfare or other systems. Okay. So let me start with some background. The Aging Network was established with the passage of the Older Americans Act in 1965 to support older adults aged 60 and older. Formally, at the federal level, the Aging Network consists of the U.S. Administration on Aging, which is part of the U.S. Administration for Community Living under the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. At the state level, state units on aging develop and administer multi-year state plans to support older adults and family caregivers. And at the local and tribal levels, area agencies on aging and Title VI Native American aging programs coordinate the delivery of these supports. They also assess local needs and develop local plans that tailor services to the needs of their communities. A handful of states do not have area agencies on aging. In those states, all services are coordinated by the state units on aging. Informally, the Aging Network also comprises numerous community-based organizations with which area agencies on aging and Title VI Native American aging programs partner. The structure of the area agencies on aging and Title VI Native American aging programs can take many forms. Some are run by governments, including county, city, and tribal, some by nonprofits, some by councils of governments, intertribal councils, and tribal consortiums, and still others by universities and colleges or other types of organizations. Whatever their structure, their role is the same: to plan, develop, and coordinate services for older adults and family caregivers in their communities. With regards to services, area agencies on aging, also known as AAAs, have flexibility in choosing and tailoring many of the services to best meet the needs in their communities. However, the Older Americans Act also specifies certain core services that all AAAs must provide or contract to provide. Specifically, all area agencies on aging must offer or contract to offer services to protect the safety and rights of older adults at home and in long-term care facilities, services to support family caregivers, nutrition services like home-delivered and congregate meals, health promotion like fitness classes and health screenings, and supportive services like transportation and information and referral. The Older Americans Act authorizes Title VI programs to offer a similar mix of services. Authorization to fund family caregiver services was added to the Older Americans Act in 2000 under the National Family Caregiver Support Program and the Native American Caregiver Support Program. Both these programs require area agencies on aging and Title VI programs receiving funds to provide these 5 services for caregivers: information for caregivers on available services, assistance to caregivers in accessing those services, caregiver respite, caregiver counseling, support groups or training, and supplemental services like income assistance and clothing. One thing to bear in mind is that while AAAs and Title VI programs receiving these program funds must offer the 5 required services to caregivers of older adults, they also have the option to offer these services to kin caregivers ages 55 and older, and most have opted to do so. In fact, U.S. Aging's most recent nationally representative survey of AAAs found that 53% of AAAs provide services specifically for kin caregivers and their families. And our most recent nationally representative survey of Title VI programs found that 84% of Title VI programs do so. The easiest way to find local area agencies on aging or Title VI Native American aging programs is to contact the U.S. Administration for Community Living's Elder Care Locator at 1-800-677-1116 or visit them online at eldercare.acl.gov. U.S. Aging is proud to partner with the U.S. Administration for Community Living to administer the Elder Care Locator. So how does the Aging Network complement child welfare in supporting kinship and grandfamilies? You might recall from Kylie's presentation on child welfare that kinship and grandfamilies involved with child welfare have access to a variety of child welfare services, while those without child welfare involvement simply do not. The Aging Network doesn't have this kind of a restriction, so the Aging Network can offer its kinship and grandfamily services to kin caregivers ages 55 and older who are not involved with child welfare, as well as those who are. AAAs also can offer additional services to kin caregivers age 60 and older, and because Title VI programs can set their own eligibility age for most of their services, many of their core services can be offered to kin caregivers younger than age 60. However, for kin caregiver services funded by the Native American Caregiver Support Program, kin caregivers' eligibility age is set by statute at age 55 and older. Those kin caregiver services required by the Native American Caregiver and the National Family Caregiver Support Programs, you may recall, are information for caregivers on available services, assistance to caregivers in accessing those services, caregiver respite, caregiver counseling, support groups or training, and supplemental services. Other kinship and grandfamily services offered by many AAAs and Title VI programs include in-kind assistance like clothing, school supplies, and home furnishings, children's mental health services and case management, help with cultural and extracurricular activities, income assistance, and holiday meals. Additional services not specifically developed for kin caregivers, but which may be available from the Aging Network's wider services include chore services and home repair, which may be especially helpful to the 25% of kin caregivers with disabilities. Home delivered and congregate meals, which some states and Title VI programs permit dependent children to receive. Transportation, telephone reassurance, and health and wellness services. To learn more about how area agencies on aging and Title VI programs support kinship and grandfamilies, see our report and fact sheet on the topic, which U.S. Aging completed for the Grandfamilies and Kinship Support Network in 2023, or to learn more about the Aging Network's wider services and how to partner with AAAs and Title VI programs, see our fact sheet, Aging Network Services and Supports for Kin and Grandfamily Caregivers. All these publications can be found on the Grandfamilies and Kinship Support Network website. Thank you. I will now turn it over to Brooke.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Brooke Mainville. I'm the Special Projects Coordinator for Region 9 Area Agency on Aging. Next slide. We cover the 12 counties of Northeast Michigan showed here on the map. Today, I'm going to discuss our Region 9 Area Agency on Aging's Kinship Care Program and how we have an informal system or network with the Child Family Services of Northeast Michigan. We share resources and services with each other to meet the needs of kinship caregivers in our region and our service area. Child Family Services provide trainings for kinship caregivers, support groups, and research and resources like foster closets. And our agency provides funding to agencies like Child Family Services and Council Commission on Aging's for kinship caregivers. And I'll go into what the kinship care program is now into more detail. Next slide. So first, I just wanted to give some background information. Leland just did a great job explaining what are some services and how we get some of our funding through as an area agency on aging. But I just wanted to show here that we use our funding through the Older Americans Act signed by President LBJ in 1965, and we use 10% of our Title III funding for our kinship care program in our service area. And I will, in a few slides, it'll show you exactly what would that 10% look like. Next slide. So what is the kinship care program? The kinship care program is for relatives raising relatives' children. They must be 55 and the children must be younger than 18 or 18 in school. And we provide funds for the kinship caregivers for expenses of caring for a youth because maybe they didn't plan for it in their retirement, or maybe they had to give up work early because of life circumstances, so they might not financially be able to care for the youth. And this is what that program is here to help. And I will go over why some of the limiting funding and what the guidelines are. I have a short time, so you will be getting the presentation slides with exactly what our guidelines are and also a handbook that we share with our resources. Next slide. So here are some of these items that our kinship care program has helped funded throughout the years. And it's not limited to, but this is a big portion of what we do. So clothing makes up a huge percentage of the items that kinship caregivers put in, as well as sport equipment, bedding, because maybe it was a fast circumstances where the children had to move into the home where they didn't come with clothing, they didn't come with bedding. We provide school supplies, summer camps, music lessons. Overall, our goal here with those are to provide respite for the caregivers. So after school, the children can go to music lessons or tutoring or swim, whatever it may be, and or a summer camp to provide that respite for the kinship caregiver. Next slide. So as I said, this kind of breaks down, and feel free to look at this in more detail on your own, but our 12 counties, you can see some counties and areas utilize our funding more than others, but also too, this just shows the breakdown of what 10% kind of looks like of our Title III funding. And again, this is open to the 12 counties in our area and the kinship caregivers for people. Agencies like Child Family Services, our Council Commission on Aging, schools to apply, help the kinship caregiver to apply for these funding. And I'll go into what is the funding exactly do they receive. But as you can see, it stays relatively the same except for in fiscal year 2023. We did use some of our ARPA funding because we had some extra funding as well as a high volume need for this project. Next slide. So over the 7 years, we've had this program for longer than 7 years, but over the last 7 years, we provided $117,870 to 247 kinship caregivers. That equated to 588 youth helped in that 7 years. And I'll go into again what does the guidelines for an application. Next slide. So here are the guidelines now. We're about to dive into the guidelines. Next slide. Okay, so quickly, I just wanted to point out, when they come into the agency to apply for the program, so your child family services, your um, senior center, the Boys and Girls Club, the school, just verifying that the kinship caregiver is 55. Again, for our program, they have to be a relative. So an aunt, uncle, grandparent, cousin, it has to be a blood relative. And they're allowed to request two proposals per year per child. So, and each request or proposal can be up to $300. So, for one child a year, you can get up to $600. And we've had, some kinship caregivers have, we've seen, 5 or 6 children in that family. So think about that kind of money. 5 children times 600, that equates to, money that is really helping them and relieving some of that financial burden. So, as in the guidelines as well, we have some limitations. For clothing, it has here 150. Since then, we've realized with inflation that $150 for clothing isn't that much. So we've actually increased this since I put this presentation out 2 weeks ago to $200 per clothing. School supplies, they can get $100 per application or child. Personal hygiene products, so deodorant, soap, you know, whatever personal hygiene products they need, razors, all those kinds of things are up to $100 per request. And again, they can do two requests a year. So kind of what we did to find those prices were, go on walmart.com and add a backpack and all the school supplies that they need and see what does that kind of equate to. That's why, with clothing, increasing that due to inflation. So we do keep an eye and try to stay to date with our numbers. However, we do have some limitations. We don't offer gift cards because we don't know that money for certain is going to what we accepted the application for. Next slide. Um, so also with this, we have helped with orthodontal work. Uh, the Another part of the guidelines too is that the biological parents cannot be living at home with the kinship caregiver and the kids. So, the biological parents can have visitation or maybe even sending some funds, but they can't be living at home. Um, Next slide. Uh, so we have done some emergency needs along in the past. They need propane. But we really try to have them work with other resources out there. MDHHS, the kinship foster closets, all these different things. We try to work with agencies that are out there, food banks, all those kinds of things to try to make the money go. So if they're requesting, sometimes we've had for food, we try to get them hooked up to other agencies for food so they can use ours for something else other than the food items. So we try to connect them with other local resources to meet their needs as well. So we're stretching the dollar. Next slide. Next slide. So again, this is the Raising Grandchildren in Northeast Michigan handbook that we give out to our partners like Child Family Services, schools, Boys and Girls Club, so they can give it out to kinship caregivers. It just has the information listed here. So the names of names and offices and phone numbers for MDHHS, probate family courts in our 12 service district, food, where to go for the food and nutrition thing. So as you can see, it's kind of like a one-stop shop booklet that is really nice to give to them so that they can look for other resources to help as well, besides just, the agency they went to fill it out, and then us as well. So we want to try to give them that resources. Next slide. Again, here's just, in our 12 service area, some of the programs that work with us that we, refer kinship caregivers to, or they refer to, as well as child family services. So if they're struggling to pay for diapers or formula, hitting up the local baby pantries and then coming to us as last resort if they still need more, rather than, utilizing us and then they'll still need something. So it's trying to alleviate some of that. Next slide. So we offer Region 9 Area Agency on Aging also offers other kinship events. This we do not use our Title III funding. We have went out and found other funding to help support this, but we have done a kinship bowling parties, a kinship support groups. We have done Thanksgiving baskets with their meals. So a turkey with stuffing and bread, everything they need for that Thanksgiving meals, and given those out. We have done kinship family game nights, as well as sent holiday cards to the kinship caregivers around the holidays. So we haven't used Title III funding, but we've gone out and we've gotten other funding to do these things to support our kinship caregivers. And so, next slide. I just wanted to show you, what are some doable, manageable projects to help your kinship caregivers in your area as working with the AAA, with Child Family Services, your senior centers, whatever it may be. These projects and what we do is very doable and manageable. So again, this information will be shared with you so you can review it. And also too, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down in the chat or ask them during the Q&A. I would love to answer any questions you might have. Without further ado, I will pass it on to Sarah.
Hello, my name is Sarah McDonald. I am the director of the Lackawanna County Area Agency on Aging, which is located in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has 52 area agencies on aging within the state, and they all look a little bit different. Ours is a county government-based area agency on aging, and we serve our whole county, which is both suburban and rural. So it's a wide range of different kinds of people that we serve. Not many people know where Lackawanna County is, but I tell everybody the big city in Lackawanna County is the city of Scranton, and most people recognize that from the show The Office. So if you like a visual, I like to share that with people. You could go to the next slide, please. In Lackawanna County, this presentation is going to go over the history of how we've collaborated with our local children and youth organization. And really, it's done nothing but help us grow our grandparent caregiver support program. I like to tell our story and share it because it was a lot of work. It wasn't always easy, but we've seen much success. And I hope, if anything, I could share some thoughts that might trigger you guys to collaborate and partner with your local child welfare systems or area agencies on aging. Because really, when two organizations like that partner together, there's a benefit for everybody in the community. In Lackawanna County, from the time the grandparent caregiver support program was implemented in Pennsylvania through about 2017, our agency maybe served 3 grandparents total, which is obviously a very small number. Grandparents raising grandchildren wasn't our specialty. We often refer them to children and youth. It was just not something that we were really taking the lead and being innovative with. The program was always available, but we did not market it well or utilize it. Annually, we were returning our funding allocations for the caregiver support program to the state because we weren't able to use them within the year. And as y'all know, returning money to your state, results in losing funding each subsequent year. So it's really demonstrating a lack of need in your community, which isn't true because even then we knew that there was a lot of grandparents in our community raising grandchildren. We just weren't doing a really good job of promoting the program. We really only had one employee in our agency that really understood the caregiver support program, which made it challenging to really market it well and put, and get it out there to the people who needed it the most. So the first thing that we realized is that here in Lackawanna County, we had a problem. You could go to the next slide. So where we began by rebuilding, reorganizing, and collaborating. Like I said, this was a journey for us. It started in about 2017 when we had at the time, a new director of aging. The director of aging had previously worked in the Office of Youth and Family Services, so he had knowledge of their foster care and kinship foster care programs. He devoted more resources. Staff were dedicated to building our caregiver support program. The funding for the caregiver support program was openly discussed as a team, and innovative ideas were shared and encouraged. That was something very new. It really was brought up at every administrative meeting that we had, so we were all aware and moving in the same direction. And then he helped us connect with the right people and collaborate with the Office of Youth and Family Services in our county, who we viewed really as the expert in services that assist with parenting and children, and it was necessary to partner with them. Can you go to the next slide, please? We felt at Aging, we had to prepare the organization for this change. For an organization to successfully pursue and implement change, it must be prepared both logistically and culturally. And we had some culture change to implement at our office. Culture change needs to come from the top down. Even though we were located on the same floor in the same building as our children and youth partners, we were very separate departments. There was some, whether they made more money as caseworkers than the aging caseworkers at children and youth, or, the children and youth always got more attention in the community. There was just a divide between these two agencies that both served the most important people in our community. So a lot of it was just breaking down those walls and barriers and finding the best people in both agencies to help us shift that culture change. The directors of aging and youth and family services, like I said, they had met and identified point people from both agencies to lead this collaboration, and they committed staff time to meet regularly. What I would like to say, what made this very successful was that the people that were identified as point people from both agencies both had a passion for helping families. They wanted to do this kind of work. So it sometimes could be a challenge if you identify somebody and they don't have the heart and don't have the will to want it to be innovative. But when you do have it, this is when good things happen. You could go to the next slide. We crafted a vision and a plan for change. The grandparent caregiver support program became a topic at every meeting and outreach event that we had. We had bi-weekly meetings with our Office in Youth and Family Service, and they focused on recruitment and outreach strategies. Where were we going to be distributing information on the programs? How could we fundraise to host events for grandparents? How do we recruit grandparents to utilize the services we can offer? Sometimes we didn't have the best reach of grandparents who are raising grandchildren, and we really leaned on our Office of Youth and Family Services to be a referral source for this program. We developed shared referral forms. We did a lot of educating staff from both agencies, and then we worked together to create an element of support, like the support of the Office of Youth and Families Foster Parent Association. That was one thing that was like really helpful to us. Our Office of Youth and Family Services had their own foster care department that developed their own foster parent association that was very similar to a support group for foster parents. It was they were already doing things and already had a model in place that seemed to really be working for them. And at the time, they saw a big shift in it being foster parents in general to kinship foster parents. So they were seeing an increase in family foster parents, and we had this program that can offer support to them. So rather than people ending up in the child welfare system, we saw this as an alternative to help kinship families find support in our community. Next slide, please. Implementing the changes. Flyers were developed with information on the grandparent caregiver support program. Aging took a lead in distributing them at senior centers, libraries, health fairs, and during routine visits where we saw grandchildren residing in the homes of older adults. Youth and Family Services distribute them at pediatrician offices, schools, and throughout the OIFS offices. So all the caseworkers at any time could have a flyer on them to share if they came across children residing with grandparents. Next slide, please. Implementation didn't happen overnight. Initially, every new referral case or case established was celebrated. Like I said, in the beginning, it took us a while to get everything in order and really do our best to recruit. So every time we got a new referral, even if it wasn't successful and we were able to do a warm handoff to another agency to support the grandparents, we celebrated it. We celebrated it we always offered credit to our Office of Youth and Family Services for each referral too. We celebrated it by sharing information in our newsletters, information like stories on our program. Newspaper had articles about our collaborative programs together, and really just trying to get the word out that we were working together to better our community. Next slide, please. Both agencies became invested in wanting to do more for the grandparents in our community that were raising their grandchildren, which resulted in many opportunities to share resources or develop new resources. Like I mentioned earlier, we knew that beyond the program, the grandparent caregiver support program and the reimbursement that was offered, there were other things that weren't going to be covered that we could do together to support the grandparents. So we did some joint fundraising with the Office and Youth and Family Services, like within the county building. We did some basket raffles, and we do some 50-50 events. I think we did a purse bingo together, but that was money not to support either of our programs or offices, strictly to support grandparents raising grandchildren. We modeled off after the Foster Parent Association. We developed and co-facilitated a monthly support group. We called it Parents a Second Time, PAST for short. And it was a monthly support group for grandparents raising grandchildren in our community. The model that we came up with was, obviously, if you were a grandparent raising a grandchildren in our program, you were 55 or older, you were eligible to participate in this support group. But if you weren't eligible due to age or your financial situation, you were still allowed to participate in the support group. Our Office of Youth and Family Services, every year they had an Adopt an Angel program for all of the children who were residing in foster care. When we started to collaborate them, they included our grandchildren from our grandparent caregiver support program. So that was the first time that they were able to engage in this. So the grandparents received Christmas presents for each child that was residing in their home through a program that was established by our Office of Youth and Family Services. We co-sponsored events benefiting both children and grandparents. So it wasn't like we had to come up with anything new. If there was something going on in the community for children, They made sure the aging office was aware and had the ability to do some outreach and sponsorships. And we did the same with them. If they had a kinship family in their office that was a grandparent raising a grandchild, we made sure to include them in any events we were hosting that would benefit them. Next. So we started embedding the changes within our company in culture and practice. We increased opportunities for case consults with the Office of Youth and Family Services. We removed the stigma of us versus them. Our grandparent caregiver support program numbers started to steadily grow. The past support group was our continued shared connection with our Office of Youth and Family Services. It included participants from Aging's grandparent program. It included grandparents ineligible for our program, and it provided meals, activities, and expert-led discussions on a variety of topics. It was facilitated by Aging and the Office of Youth and Family Services employees. Next. So where we are today, a review of our progress and analyze our results. Today, we have 41 active cases in our grandparent caregiver support program. We continue to collaborate with our Office of Youth and Family Services. We have an enhanced version of our past support group due to its success and some changes that we've both had throughout COVID and after with staffing. We actually have an agency that we partner with to run our past support group monthly. We wouldn't have this partnership with this agency if we didn't have a relationship with our local children and youth office. They do a lot of supportive programming for parents in general. So it was a really good fit, and we're really grateful for their support in keeping our support group going. Our grandparent caregiver support program is always invited to participate in programs available to children in OIFS. Like I mentioned before, there's the Adopt an Angel program. We have free book bag giveaways, children's programs and activities in our community, medical events focused on children, food giveaways, provided Aging the tools to support grandparents during difficult times. COVID and the staffing crises that we faced, if we didn't have children and youth as a resource, we could not have been innovative with this group that we serve, this group of grandparents that we serve. So really the collaboration really helped us to stay strong. Next slide, please. I included a picture of our flyer for our support group, our Parents a Second Time support group. This is what, is advertised today. Like I said, they're still meeting every month, and they get a dinner and some childcare and activities, and we always provide them with some informational topics at each session. Actually, the top picture to the right is a picture of some activities going on at one of our past support groups. And the bottom picture is our Aging staff. We were at Amazon. They sponsored some kids through the Adopt an Angel program, and we were picking up their Christmas gifts. It's always such a nice thing to be able to help grandparents raising grandchildren during the holidays because of, the unexpected costs of gifts. So that was always a nice thing to do. Next. And just a thank you for listening.
Thank
I
you,
really
Sarah. Thank you so much for all the you shared. And in 1 minute, we will log over to a Zoom meeting. And so you can ask Sarah and Brooke and Leland and Kylie all your questions. And we'll be able to get off camera and get off sound if you want to. So Maria is going to drop that link in the chat now. So you'll need to log off this and log on to that to ask your questions. We so appreciate you all joining us today. You're going to get a survey. If you don't mind answering that, we would much appreciate it. And we have an upcoming webinar, which we ask that you join along with an opportunity to submit exemplary practices. I will share those in the follow-up slides because I want to respect your time and end here on time. But please join us in the Zoom meeting for the Q&A. You see the link right there. We'll leave this webinar open for a moment so you can click on the Zoom meeting link and or you can copy it rather and join us there. So we will keep this webinar open for a moment so that you don't lose that link. And I look forward to seeing you in that virtual space. And thank you again, Leland and Sarah and Brooke and Kylie.